Hi, cozy friends! For today's vlog, I kind of wanted to approach our activities that we do together with a little more intention behind it. And that intention this week is really just understanding why we might abandon hobbies, what that says about our brains, what that says about us. Is that really a bad thing at all? And what can we do to approach hobbies more sustainably, whatever that might mean to you? If you're anything like me, which you probably are if you're one of our cozy friends, you constantly are picking up things and wanting to try everything. You want to just like touch every single hobby and interest and project that you possibly can. Nothing's ever too much. Nothing's ever too out there for you. Like, you just want to try everything because life's short and there's so much to try, and like, why wouldn't you? And so maybe you have a habit of picking up a bunch of hobbies and then never finishing them. And maybe you have like a cabinet of shame somewhere where you have all of your unfinished projects, attempting to be a jack of all trades and then never really having a conclusion to those attempts, and starting so many things and accumulating so many hyperfixations. There tends to be a lot of shame and guilt wrapped up in it. And I also want to unpack today, like, is that necessary? Is that helpful? If we unpack why it is that we pick up and drop so many hobbies, and we think about like what the purpose of hobbies even are and why we have them and what purpose they're serving to us, should we be able to release that shame and guilt and all of that? I don't know. We'll see. Let's have a little hobby time and chat about the first thing that I want to get into. All right, you guys, we meet today in my cozy hobby nook. It really is just like my safe space and the space that I feel most comfortable engaging in my hobbies. And I feel like it's really important to just have a little spot in your home. It could literally be a pillow, a floor pillow in a corner of a room, whatever it is, some little dedicated corner for you, just yourself, to be able to dedicate to yourself and your hobbies. And I like to use the most liberal definition of hobby possible. The hobby I'm doing right now is a sticker book. Is a sticker book considered a hobby by most people? Probably not. To me, it is. I think the word hobby should include so many activities that I feel like a lot of people might not, but hobbies are really just the activities that you are spending time doing. To me, having a hobby is having an activity that you can be present in with yourself. You can just have that time to like learn and figure out what you like in the world. And if that's putting stickers in a book, that's putting stickers in a book. That's a hobby, baby. So while we do this hobby of mine, I want to reimagine what hobbies actually are. Like, let's unpack it, what purpose they serve in our lives, so that we can understand if it is truly a bad thing that we might pick up and drop them on a whim. So I feel like a reflection question I used to ask myself, like, whenever shame would start to creep in for me, as it just does, you guys, like, shame is a part of our society and a part of how we've learned to cope and exist. Unfortunately, like, so much of the structures that we learn in life are just built on not doing something because of shame or guilt, you know, like not resting because you have so much shame and guilt that you're not being productive, and all the other systems we have in place. It's built on shame, which is unfortunate. But when I would start to feel that shame creep into my safe spaces, my hobby spaces, like the spaces I would go to truly get away from the most stressful moments in my life, I would stop and think, what reason am I doing this in the first place? So like, maybe I would start a hobby and I wouldn't really like it, and I would be forcing myself through it, and then I would abandon it. I'd put it aside, and I would feel that shame creep in. And when I felt that shame creep in, I would say, girl, hey, what was the reason you were doing the hobby to begin with? What was the reason? And the reason was to relax and to have fun and to try something new. And if I wasn't having fun anymore and I didn't like that activity anymore, there is no shame in putting it down and not picking it up again. Like, there should be no shame in that. There's no room in our hobbies that we do for joy and fulfillment outside of the work that we're constantly doing. The few hours in the day we have for ourselves and our hobbies, why welcome shame and perfectionism into that too? Like, we already are demanded that in so many other areas of our life. Like, why do that to ourselves in the moments we're supposed to be having having whimsical, silly fun. I really had to stop and think, like, am I making hobbies another check on my to-do list? Like, am I just making it another thing I can say, I'm doing a good job at this and I'm accomplishing things and I'm being productive? Oh my God, I am. Like, what is the point? Like, what is the point? I'm making hobbies another thing that I have to live up to, and I have to set an expectation for myself, and I can fall short of that expectation. No, that is not the point of hobbies. So to really dig deeper into the question of, like, what are hobbies? What purpose do they serve? I think you know that already. Like, we all know that already. We know that it's to bring us joy. We know that it's a break in the day. It's rest. It's momentary reprieve from the craziness of the world. So, like, why bring in this idea that it has to have some sort of finish line, like everything else that we have to engage in our lives? Why bring that to our leisure time as well? Like, it's just not necessary. So, like, in the same way that I always talk about, doing hobbies is not to be perfect at it or to be good at it. Like, singing and dancing and acting and painting and other kinds of hobbies, coloring, gaming, like, it's we don't engage in it to be good at it. We don't have to be good at it. The point is not to be good at it. I think society often tells us that's the point, and we feel that pressure kind of come in sometimes. But when you can really stop and reflect and say, is that what I want out of this? Like, do I want to be the best at this? No, I want to just have fun. I want to sing not to be a professional singer. I want to sing because it makes me happy and it relieves stress, and I love singing my favorite songs. And so in the same way that we as a community are cozy friends, like, we constantly are giving ourselves that reassurance that we don't have to be good at something to be having fun and for it to serve us. I think we also need to subvert the idea that a hobby has to have a finished product, and that it has to have an end, and that you have to start it with the intention of finishing it. There's some kind of, like, greater obligation to finished products and curating and presenting an assembly line of all of the hobbies you've tried before. Like, there's no reason for that. I don't know at what point that kind of became an expectation. Also, bringing back the shame element, often when we do feel that sense of, like, I'm feeling a little bit of shame for not finishing a project, like, you're less likely to then return to it and see if maybe that's something you do actually like, because now there's so much shame wrapped up in not having finished it the first time that you don't even want to go back in for a second try. When we subscribe to the idea that there has to be a start and a finish and we have to have an end product, then the shame creeps in. And when the shame creeps in, when we start something, sometimes we don't want to finish it because there's shame around it because we didn't finish it the first time. So it really is this vicious cycle that can be dispelled so simply, not easily, but simply, when we reject the notion that hobbies have to be finished, and that each hobby is an A to B journey, and that each hobby is serving us solely to have a completed project. Sometimes hobbies are the friend we made along the way. Like, sometimes hobbies, the sole purpose of the hobby is to teach us that we didn't like that hobby. You guys take a shot every time I say hobby this video. Sometimes the sole purpose is to, for that one day, give us a sense of relief. In my most stressful times, this is like back when I was studying for the bar, I would do activity books. I would do, like, fourth grade activity books because it was super low brain power for me when I already had a full day of a lot of studying and constant brain energy, so I just didn't have capacity at the end of the day for any more. But I wanted to feel comforted, I wanted to feel regulated, and I wanted some, like, predictable activity that had short start and finishes, to have, like, those small wins. Did I ever go back and, like, finish that activity book? No. I just did it in the few times that I needed it in that time of my life because that's what I needed in that moment. Sometimes that is the sole purpose of the hobby. It's to give you that sense of relief and care and love for yourself in that one moment, in that one day, in that 1 hour, whatever it is. And you never have to pick it up again because it already served its purpose. It did what it had to do. If you feel so inclined to come back to that hobby because you genuinely find joy in it and you genuinely want to come back to it, then that's amazing. Then that's a hobby that might last a lifetime for you, or it might last a week or a month or whatever, slightly longer, but maybe not your whole life. But if you don't feel that natural urge, there's no reason to be like, oh no, I started another hobby and I didn't finish it again. You had a moment for yourself, and that's a win, and that is all that it needed to do. So sometimes it's to just give you that moment. Sometimes it's to teach you don't like that hobby and you want to move on to another one. Sometimes it's to teach you that you do love that hobby and you want to keep going. Sometimes it's to teach you, I like this hobby, but maybe like I like it in a slightly different way. And then even in other moments, it's to teach you, I only like this hobby, but only in these moods, like only to serve these specific moods. And maybe that's a hobby I keep throughout my lifetime, but it's only when I'm sad, or it's only when I'm stressed, or it's only when I'm fully relaxed. Some people only like to read like on the weekends, for example. They don't want to read after a long day of work. That doesn't mean that you're inconsistent with reading because you only read on the weekends. It just means that's when you like to read. Some people only like to play cozy games and game when they're on vacation. That doesn't mean like, oh man, I should really get back to that hobby. I'm so bad at keeping up with it. No, it means that like there's a time and place for you to enjoy that hobby to its fullest. Sometimes you don't feel creative enough and relaxed enough and in tune with yourself enough to be artistic and to engage in artistic hobbies. There's no reason to force that or to beat yourself up for not feeling like engaging in an artistic hobby. Same with hobbies that are more cerebral. Like you're not gonna feel like that all the time, and that's okay. So not to beat a dead horse, but the most important thing is to reflect on why it is that you are bringing hobbies into your life at all. What excites you about it? Is it just the initial accumulation of your hobbies and the initial hyperfixation? Hey, that's a hobby in and of itself. And that's not to say like, let's just accumulate a bunch of junk we're never gonna use. Like, not that necessarily, but like if you find so much joy in like learning and researching and like the hyperfixation initial phase of all of the research of a hobby, and then maybe you don't actually execute, that doesn't mean you're like lazy and inconsistent and all of these other bad adjectives. It means that you like research. Maybe researching is your hobby, and maybe researching about hobbies is your hobby. I think when it comes to feelings of why do I do this? Why do I engage in activities this way? Why do I pick up things and not come back to them? Why? Yes, there's so much to say about, perfectionism and beating yourself up about it not being good enough so then you don't come back to it. There's something to say about needing to learn a little bit of pushing through the hard part and pushing through the part where you're not great at it, and some people being better at pushing through that phase than others. There's something to say for not sticking to something, sure. But I'm sure you know when that is the case, and then when it's simply just that hobby served its purpose and now it isn't. Now it's not serving that purpose anymore. It's really important to look at our behaviors with compassion, look at our behaviors with almost like an objective third-party view, and not beat ourselves up and say, why do I do this? It's so bad that I do this. And instead try to like look at what baseline protective measures are taking place in your body and your mind to just like help you function in the day, and having compassion for that, having empathy for that, and understanding that like just because I don't do something the way it quote unquote should be done does not mean you're a failure, does not mean you're doing something wrong. Sometimes it's important to either look outward and say, do I even subscribe to the beliefs that I'm putting on myself? Do I even actually believe I should be finishing this project right now if I don't want to? And then other times it's important to look inward and think like, okay, even if I do subscribe to that belief, even if I do think I should be finishing this thing right now, is that required in this moment? Is that something I have to do right now, or in this way, or in this year, in this version of myself? Or can I give myself a pass to come back to it later when I'm in a different space, when I have more capacity, when I have worked through my perfectionism a bit more? Generally, when I can be more accepting and compassionate of myself. I think I generally think the world would be a better place if we were all a little less strict and stringent about how things should be, about the expectations we place on ourselves, because they're often quite impossible. And they're often expectations we wouldn't place on our friends and our family and the people that matter to us. We would be understanding if they didn't meet the same impossible standards that we put on ourselves. And we would have reasons for them. We would say, oh, that makes sense because of XYZ. Oh, that makes sense because of where you are right now in life. But we don't often give ourselves that same grace. And I think we would be much happier people in general if we did. And if we allowed the definitions of what a hobby looks like and how it should show up in our lives to be a little less rigid and reconnect with the true purpose of what it is and the true reason we invite hobbies into our lives in the first place, which is to have fun. It's just simply to have fun. So let's move on to the next hobby that I want to do, which is something new. Here's my little sticker book. It's so cute. I love doing this for just like a really brain off, like I don't have to think about it. I can just peel and stick, and then you have a cute little thing at the end of it. All right, let's go to our next hobby. All right, y'all. So now that we've decided to stop treating hobbies like a job, because they're not, they're meant to just be fun, I kind of want to name the two different hobby categories that I funnel all of the hobbies I try into. The two categories I have are my core hobbies and my fling hobbies. And I'm sure you can imagine what these two are. So my core hobbies are the hobbies I have kept for my whole life, or I've nurtured in adulthood and have realized I love so much and I keep returning to. Some of these for me are like coloring and different forms of painting, gaming, reading, crosswords, word searches, Sudoku, watercolor. Those are a lot of my core hobbies where, as far as I know, they're here to stay. I've tried them. I love them. I don't care if I'm good or bad at them. I just love them so much. I continue to find joy and comfort in them. And so they are core to me. You don't necessarily need that. I don't think that's necessary for a hobby practice, but that kind of just is what happens after a while of trying different hobbies. Then I have my flings. My flings are the hobbies that I try and I abandon, or I pick up on a whim and maybe I don't touch for another 4 or 5 years. Some of these so far for me have been crochet. I can't tell you how many crochet projects I started and did not finish. To this day, I have a little cute crochet turtle to this day that I just crocheted the head to. There's no body. It's just the head. And I keep saying maybe someday, but maybe not. Like, I have released any shame or guilt around the fact that this head exists, and it just disembodied turtle head exists in my hobby storage, and that is okay. If I want to go back to it, I will. If I don't, I don't. Head's still there. Either way. Knitting is something that I return to every like 5 years. It's a very interesting fling hobby for me, where I've knit a scarf before, I've knit a headband before, and I didn't pick it back up for, it really was like 5 to 6 years. I picked it back up again recently, and I started something and I didn't finish it. I just kind of started it and was like, I don't know. I don't think now's the time either. Maybe I need to like move to some cute, cozy town that has seasons and snows for me to like get back into knitting. The last time I knit, I was living in DC, where I did get snowy and cold at one point in the year. So maybe that's the secret. Maybe it's that I need my environment to match the coziness of the hobby. But that's an example of fling hobbies for me. And some fling hobbies too, I've tried for a second and then I went, oh no. Oh, I don't have the capacity for that right now. And then I've just put it on the back burner for maybe another day. Like maybe we can dive in and actually give it a good old try another day. And I really think fling hobbies are just as important and just as valid to a hobby practice as your core hobbies. If you have 10 fling hobbies that you picked up, put down, you picked up, thrown out, you do once every blue moon, that's just as valid because it's just part of the hobby practice. Like it's part of learning yourself. It's part of learning what you like, what you don't like. It's blah, blah, blah. Y'all already heard the spiel. So a couple hobbies that either I'm curious about becoming fling hobbies or is a fling hobby for me, we're going to pick which one to do today and see how we feel about it. We're just gonna like reflect at the end of it. One of them is Myrtle. which is kind of like a series of logic puzzles. So I've stayed very far away from any logic puzzle related things because largely because of being an ex-lawyer, having had to take the LSAT where there was all of the logic puzzles, and then just generally having to do a lot of like logic work in my brain for years after that. It didn't sound fun to me to do on just my free time until now. Now I'm far enough from that life where I'm like, you know what, that sounds kind of fun. I kind of miss, doing a little logic. Again, wasn't a hobby that had any purpose or service to me before, but now times change, you change. We are not static beings. We are always changing. So now I want to try Myrtle, but this is also when I've kind of been scared of like, what if I don't like it? What if I'm not good at it? And I've had to stop and be like, Kennedy, what do you preach all the time? What do you talk about all the time? You don't have to be good at it. You can just simply try it, see if you like it. So this is one of the potential fling hobbies we're gonna try today. The other is beading. So beading, I tried for a little bit because I was doing research for my book. Shameless plug of my book, Cozy Hobbies, which I will have linked for pre-ordering in the description. I was doing research for my book. There were a number of hobbies that like I hadn't had enough experience with, but I just felt like had to be in the book. Like this, you can't make a cozy hobby book and not include this hobby. So I had to then go and do some research for those hobbies and like some tips and tricks on them and like what experts talk about for tips and tricks, my own experiences working with the stuff. But beading was one of those that I had no experience with. Throughout my research, I was like, this is way harder than I thought it was gonna be. And so I ended up kind of just doing one project of like beading onto an embroidery canvas, like doing more of embroidery beading than 3D beading. And it terrified me, and it still does to this day. So I think if we're gonna pick between these two, beading or Myrtle, can you guess what I'm gonna pick? I'm gonna pick the new one. I'm gonna pick Myrtle because beading still scares me. So maybe there will come a day when I have a little bit more capacity, and that's probably gonna be a day when I'm not vlogging. Hi, Sheila. But I think we should try a little Myrtle and see how I feel. Also, just to emphasize, I feel like having these categories, I know it kind of sounds silly, but having these categories is so important to like releasing the expectations that we tend to put on ourselves that we talked about before. Just naming something as a fling, it immediately takes the pressure off and immediately makes you feel like, okay, like it's okay to just dip my toes in for a little bit. A spark of curiosity does not have to be a lifelong commitment. Sometimes that spark can turn into a lifelong commitment, but not putting that pressure on things right off the bat is it's just so important to like actually enjoying your time, and it doesn't feel like you're like sitting for an interview for the most important job of your life or something like that. Like you're simply just having a little fun with a fling. So let's start. I always start very easy. I don't like to like jump into the hardest thing ever. There's elementary to impossible level. We're starting elementary because like I said, I like to start easy and fun. And if you like to start by challenging yourself, do that too. Okay, I'm diving in. All right, you guys, I did the first one. It was much easier than I thought it was going to be. I was confusing myself because I thought it would be more complicated than it was. I do enjoy that the elementary ones are like actually elementary, because then it's like still you're slightly using your mind and your head and logic, and those neurons are firing, but it's just so simple. So it's really nice. I was scared, and that's why you just give something a little shot. Just see, no pressure, no commitment. You don't have to do the whole book. You just do one and see if you like it. But yeah, I really
like that. Let's try another one. Now I feel like I can kind of explain it. 3 people and you get descriptions of them. So they have like height, if they're left-handed or right-handed, eye color, hair color, and then you get 3 locations and you get 3 weapons. And then it gives you like 5 bullet points of evidence. And sometimes the evidence is telling you where the weapon was found, where the body was found. 2 people can't be in the same location. 2 people can't have the same weapon. So it makes it really easy. And I'm curious, okay, yeah, the sheets do get bigger. So I'm guessing there are situations where like 2 people could be in the same location and then it would be like a bit more, you'd have to do a bit more deducing. But this is like really quite simple. So let's do the second one. Okay. Yeah, got that one right too. Yay, that's so much fun. I love that. All right, y'all. I would say that was a fling success. That's a fling that probably is going to move out of fling territory and I wouldn't say into core territory quite yet, but it's definitely going to be a mainstay. I love that. That is so much fun. And it'll be interesting to see like if moving up in difficulty is gonna take me away from it and take me out of it. And if what I like about it is just like the calming, low stakes brain time that the easy difficulty gives me. But I don't know, we'll see. But that is the importance in including flings and like allowing for flings is that like you can find one that you really do like and enjoy. And you also learn maybe that you don't like some and you're scared of some. I'm looking at the beading container right now. We tried the fling hobby. Now it's time to try a core hobby. It's like sitting on the couch in your pajamas, binge watching a show with your friend instead of putting on a new outfit, putting on makeup and going on a first date. That's what a core hobby feels like to me versus a fling hobby. Both can be fun at different points in your life and both serve a different function. Let's get into our core hobby. All right, y'all, the next little hobby activity I want to get into is some cozy gaming. Of course, one of my favorites. I want to add a little fun spin to it, which is going to have a little park date. Bring like a picnic blanket and my Switch and just have a little time there in the shade. But this is the perfect time to tell you about our cozy sponsor, Belkin. There are 2 Nintendo Switch 2 accessories that I've been loving lately from Belkin. The charging grip has changed the absolute game for me because I would get hand cramps, especially after Pokopia and Tomodachi Life came out. The way that I hold it now is so much more ergonomic. This battery pack, just a no-brainer, and it's such a clever design. It attaches magnetically to the back like this. The charging cable tucks in so neatly to this so it's not dangling off. It's so neat and clean, and then you're charging your Switch while you play. So this is the perfect thing for me to bring to the picnic, for me to bring while I'm traveling, and it comes in black, lilac, and this olive color. Obviously I went with the olive color. I love green. I love any earth tones. This has just been a game changer for me. And then the travel bag is such a nice little accessory to have. There's a little piece that fits in for all of your games. It's also perfect to bring to the airport when you want to keep like your Switch on me. Like sometimes I get nervous about it. And then you could just shove this one into your personal bag because it's such a good like compact size. And you could do just a little tote or you can do full crossbody. This would be a really good bag for traveling abroad for easy access to personal items. So phone, wallet, keys. This would be a really good bag for that too. There's the padded, soft lined pocket back here for your Switch. There's an interior pocket in here for like a wall charger. There's kind of this main pocket for anything else you might want to put in here. You can also fit the Pro controller in this main compartment too, which is nice. So we're gonna take these with us to the park. And if you're interested in either of these items for your Nintendo Switch 2, there will be a link in the description to try it out. Thank you so much, Belkin. Let's go have fun at the park. Well, the next thing I want to try is some construction paper art. And it's been a while since I tried this. I think, again, it was back when I was doing some research for my book. But I have been itching and dying to try it out again. I want to try like a little hydrangea maybe, where I can do a bunch of just small... I can do a bunch of just small little circles and formulate them in the shape of a like hydrangea flower. And I could put it on this, which would be so cute. It's a little experiment. We'll see. Then I can maybe make this into some kind of card or something. I think that would be adorable. And while we chat a little bit about our feelings about hobbies, I think, and a little bit about how we approach them. Okay, I'm gonna get started with the base of the flower on this first. While we get started, I wanted to kind of talk about the brain functions that happen when we pick up a hobby, because I just thought it's so interesting that I wanted to look more into like what is happening when our brain gets excited about a hobby and then we immediately just kind of taper off. And so yeah, I looked into it, and there is this study. It's the Sapolsky dopamine anticipation study. He was a Stanford professor, and he found that our dopamine doesn't spike the most when we're finishing a project. It actually just spikes the most when we're anticipating a project, which kind of tracks to everything we've been saying and kind of how I've always felt with most things. I'd say even they talk about that with travel as well. Like, you know, the best part of travel is anticipating it, not actually like going on the trip. That's obviously not across the board and not for everybody and not for every trip, but in our brains, like the way that it functions in our brains, the way anticipation works in our brains, we actually get the most dopamine from just anticipation alone. So yeah, that's like exactly why learning about the hobby and planning for the hobby and buying materials for the hobby and prepping and saving Pinterest board ideas for all of your hobbies, that's why that is so much easier and probably just so much more common in your hobby practice than maybe actually finishing the hobby projects. And again, that's not true for everybody, and I'm sure that's definitely more common with us spicy brain folks, where we crave dopamine in such a specific way and in such a specific context, and that's kind of like our motivation centers. So it definitely looks different for everybody, but I found that so interesting. So you're getting that like huge chemical high for all of the preparation and anticipation, like the concept of it, but the second you like might sit down to actually start, the anticipation's over, and then your dopamine goes away, and you're like, okay, well, my like brain chemicals are leveling out, and now I don't really care as much. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying we should completely excuse everything based on brain chemicals and how they work. I'm saying it's really important to know how our brains work in order to both give ourselves grace and in order to know how to move forward. Like when we actually do want to get started on a project, we have to know how our brains work so that we can accommodate that, you know? And I think that just goes back into my approach with hobbies, which is like, sometimes that's a necessary phase of the hobby. Sometimes a necessary phase is getting excited and dropping it. Because then you've had the fun of anticipation and that part of the excitement for you is over. And now when you come back to the hobby with compassion and understanding, you're coming back to it for just like love of the game. You're coming back to it for actual joy in that hobby rather than the planning and anticipation. And like, I almost see that as two different hobbies. Like I said before, it's almost like the planning and the prep and all of that is a hobby in and of itself. When you can finally come back to that hobby that you did all that planning and prep work for, now it's time for like the real hobby time to begin, and you don't have to carry that shame around with you for leaving it in the first place, because now you understand like why your brain does that, and you can give yourself a little bit of a break. It's not, like we've said before, it's not because you're a failure, it's not because you have no follow through, it's none of that. It's just how our brains work, and when we know that and when we have that knowledge, we can approach our hobby practice with a bit more mindfulness and understanding of ourselves, because everybody works a little bit differently. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be so cute. And just as like a testament to my own hobby practice,
Construction paper art was a hobby that I did so much prep work for. When I tell you I have like hundreds of construction paper art inspiration pins saved on Pinterest. Like I have so many. I did like deep dives. I did YouTube videos. Like I just got so into it. I found like specific construction paper artists that I really liked and was inspired by. Did I ever pick up the hobby once in that I would say like half of a year? No, I didn't. I didn't. I just had so much fun gathering a bunch of intel and information, and that was my hobby for a while. It was just taking in the hobby. And so there's like such a utility to excitement and anticipation. And like if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had all of the inspiration that I have now to draw on. I wouldn't have had the concepts of like all that you can do with this hobby unless I had done that. So it is necessary, and it's not something to, you know, as I'm a broken record, but it's lack of like initiation on certain hobbies is not, and does not automatically mean that it'll never happen. It doesn't mean that you're somebody that lacks initiative on all things. It just means like maybe that's not the right time for you to start that project yet. Maybe you need a little bit more intel. Maybe your brain is just like looking for a safer space to get started, and maybe that requires just more knowledge and more input in terms of like inspiration and things. After that period was over of me collecting a bunch of intel and data and whatnot, then it was time to try. It was time to try, and when I first tried, I hated it. I didn't like it. This was like a while ago. I tried in such a specific way. I thought you had to use X-Acto knives, and I thought you had to use all these special tools. And so I was just like trying my hardest to do it the way I thought my months and months of intel collecting had steered me. I don't even remember what it was that I tried to make. I think I just tried to make anything. Oh my gosh. It was awful. I couldn't cut properly. I thought I would be able to just cut seamlessly and perfectly on the first go. It's just like the classic hobbyist's experience where like you have this image of how it's gonna go, and it doesn't go anything like that. And so you have like two ways to move forward then. It's like, do I give up because I'm just awful at everything that I try? I just can't do it. It's not looking right. It's not looking like how everybody else's looks. I used this tool and it's not working the way that I thought it was gonna work. And so it'll never work. Or do you try again? Do you take in more intel? Do you go and research some more? Do you try some more? Do you just let yourself be bad at it for a little bit until you figure out what's going on? Or maybe you put it down and you pick it up when you have the patience to do all of those things again. Maybe it didn't go right the first time. Maybe you need a little bit of space from the hobby. Either direction is fine, but the one I don't think we should strive for is beating ourselves up, saying, I just can't do this. I'll never be able to do this. Everything's going wrong. I knew I shouldn't have started this in the first place. Now, if you like genuinely hate it, that's another story. If you're like, oh my God, this puts me in a really bad mental state, then that's something you learned, and you know, you did all that intel work and you spent all that time learning only to arrive at the realization that like this hobby's not for you, and that's okay too. But that's definitely something entirely different from a defeatist attitude and an attitude of, since I'm not perfect at it, I'll give up on it forever. So yeah, that's been my journey of learning that it's gonna be a rocky road, and even like enjoyment is not always gonna feel the same through that journey too. It's not always gonna feel rewarding. It's not always gonna feel immediately easy to you, and that's okay. Like, as long as you're having a good time with the hobby, even through those like moments where you might need to self-regulate and be like, all right, girl, calm down. It's okay. The point of this is to have fun. Even when you need to have those moments, that the having fun is the core of all that matters. And so just like listening to yourself and realizing like, is this something that I'm actually enjoying, or is this something I'm hating, or am I hating it because I'm not perfect at it? And if so, can I regulate my emotions to feel better about it and be able to approach it in a different way? All of that are things that I had to explore and navigate with just one simple hobby of construction paper art. I've had that experience with many hobbies, but like that's just an example of what I experienced with this. So the first time was awful. I was like, oh my God, nothing's going to plan. And then I
had to put it down for many months. And then I picked it back up again later when I was doing research. And I loved it because I realized I just had to find a way to engage in this art that felt right to me and didn't require perfection. Like, it didn't require certain skills. I could do it a little more messily. I was allowed to, like, I just had to give myself that permission to just do it in a different way. And that's what, like, hobbies and art is all about. Like, you don't have to do it in perfect, mastered, skilled level way. You don't have to, like, spend years perfecting your craft to cut paper in a perfect straight line. You can just approach it however is fun to you. And so as soon as I, like, took away the need to do it a specific way in this preconceived notion I had of what construction paper art was, and I was seeing all these, like, perfect lines and these perfect layers and shadow techniques and all of this, and, like, you can do that if you want, if that makes you happy, if that's fun for you. But that's not what's fun for me about it. I had fun just, like, doing kind of rudimentary, like, collage style construction paper art like this, and that was fun, that was rewarding. And it's also just, like, your personal style too. Like, whatever speaks to you, that's your style. You don't have to try and emulate someone else's style if that's not, like, what speaks to you in the medium. The more you allow yourself to understand how your brain works and be okay with that and, like, accept that and just listen to that and be in touch with what your brain is trying to tell you, the more enjoyable your hobby practice will be. So I'm gonna finish up this flower and it's looking cute and silly already. I'm gonna finish this up, make it nice and bushy, and then we'll chat some more. All right, y'all, here is my little construction paper hydrangea. I think I will definitely make this into a little card for somebody and do, like, a cute little saying written down here, and then it's just flipped over with a little card on the other side. I think that'll be so cute. Hi, Azusa. It's a little bit more of an abstract concept of what a hydrangea is versus a literal one, but it's cute. And I had a fun little moment, a fun little tactile moment of cutting out some paper, and that was fun and rewarding for me. So that's that. All right, y'all, the last thing I want to talk about is my social media cleanse, which y'all know I've been on, and y'all also know I won't stop talking about it, but I kind of wanted to give details about it. I think in the last video, some of you are curious about my exact approach and, like, what I'm cutting out, what I'm not. Forgive me for stepping on my soapbox for a little bit here, but this relates to this topic of abandoning hobbies because it's our phones. It's our damn phones when it comes to our attention span and our ability to just sit and be present with our thoughts in an activity. I don't know about you, like, if you think back on your childhood, if you think back on even, like, your slightly more, like, adolescent, young adult years before there were all of these, swipey algorithms, think about, like, the activities you would sit down with for hours. I simply just had more of a capacity. My attention span was so much more attuned and, like, ready to go and ready to lock in on something for a long period of time back before these damn phones. And so I'm stepping on my soapbox to suggest, not demand, not, come from a place of, like, oh, I've learned and so you should now. No, to simply suggest, to hold your hand while I suggest that stepping away from scrolling, stepping away from certain screens, certain apps, doesn't have to be all of them, 100% can help with that feeling of this doesn't sound fun right now, of sitting down with a hobby that in your heart you would love to try, in your heart would bring you joy, but then you sit down and you're like, where's my phone? You're like, you feel just like this itch. This feels like such a high mental load. And so I would rather do something passive, something that is constantly delivering dopamine hits with
something like scrolling. It's just kind of the way of the world now. And I know there's so many of you in this community that haven't done that. And like you've stepped away and you're like, I don't use social media anymore. I don't scroll anymore. I don't use these specific apps anymore. And you've talked about how much that has affected your attention span and your ability to engage with hobbies that you used to love and you used to be able to engage with for much longer. As someone who is going through the social media cleanse myself, like I cannot relate enough. Like I feel that so much. And I have such a bigger capacity now after over a month of doing this now. I have such a huge capacity now for long sessions of like whatever activity it is that I want to start. And I don't have that scratchy little feeling of like, wouldn't it just be so much more fun to scroll right now? Don't you want to laugh? There's just endless things at the tip of our fingers here. There's unlimited things to laugh at and look at. How can that not compete with just like a simple hobby activity? You know, it's just going to. And so just taking that away entirely has really changed my approach and my feelings towards hobbies. So my particular approach these days, this is how I'm doing it. And when I tell you my screen time I was averaging like 7 hours of screen time a day. My Instagram, I think, would look like 5 or so hours a week. I think it might have been higher than that. I don't know. My screen time was atrocious. So like I'm coming to you from someone who I was in the trenches of it. And so if I can do it, all that to say, if I could do it, literally anyone could do it. If I can do it, I was in there. I was chronically online. I knew every reference. I knew every joke. I knew everything that was happening as it happened. I was in there. And now I truly am not missing anything about it. A month and a half later, I could not care less. And so this is how I went about it. Have something that is physically keeping you from picking up your phone to scroll. And if that needs to be a app that limits that time and you know you won't bypass it, that's the key, you know you won't bypass it, then it can be an app. If it's getting a dumb phone, it can be that. I personally have a brick. I love my brick, but you can do the same thing with like a NFC sticker and another like focus brick style app, so you don't have to like pay for a brick. I keep one in my office, I keep one downstairs, and I keep one in my car just in case I forget to brick because I have done that before or I forget to unbrick because I have done that before. What this does is it does not allow me to open certain apps. They are blocked. When I click on it, say let's see, I'm gonna click on Discord, it says Discord is blocked. That's it. This is necessary, having that physical barrier instead of just like the screen time where it's like, oh, you've been doing it for 2 hours. You shouldn't do it anymore. And it's just a little wink. It's a little suggestion. And then there's buttons. There's all those options you can choose of like, well, what if I do 15 minutes more? Or what if I ignore it for the day? The barrier has to be stronger than that. Unless you trust yourself, unless you know that will work. As soon as you realize it doesn't, as soon as it starts to not work and you start bypassing, you've got to amp it up. You've got to move to like a physical barrier. The reason that your brain needs a physical barrier is, I think it's called the limbic system in your brain. Your brain is always defaulting to like the most efficient and the most satisfying action you can take. It's just like a survival skill, whatever. So like even if you have those suggestions that pop up, your brain is kicking in and it's going, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do the fun thing. And it's like you're not even really conscious for it. It's not even like you're making that conscious decision. Sometimes you'll just find yourself opening your phone, all of a sudden Instagram's open. Sometimes I will literally, it feels like this was like the first week I started doing this. It feels like I blacked out. Like all of a sudden I would look at my phone and it has this screen on it. It says Instagram's blocked. I was like, when did I open Instagram? I am not kidding you. Your brain is working in a way you can't keep up with. And so that physical barrier is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, you will just be subconscious, passive, just locked into a scroll without even realizing it. And it's scary. And so my approach is using the brick. When I'm in bed at night and when I wake up in the morning and I'm in bed, I'm not going on my phone. I'm not doing anything. That has been one of the hardest things, is waking up. I see I have like an hour left before I actually want to get up. And so I have to sit there and be like, what am I going to do for an hour? Often I end up getting up. I end up just like getting up and starting my day. And like I have a whole hour of a day added to my day that I otherwise would have been just scrolling, doing something pointless. Other times I like read.
I'll start reading my book. Other times I'll sit there and think and plan or like ideate, and I'll just get lost in my thoughts. That is just a small microcosm, like small example of what your entire day looks like. Like that's just the first hour of my day. When you are bricked or whatever system you have, your entire day looks like that. You just have more time, you have more mental space, and over time your brain stops seeking dopamine and it starts seeking just like natural levels of activity. Something like sitting here for over 30 minutes and working on a little craft doesn't feel like, oh my God, I'm forcing myself to do this, when my brain is just constantly thinking of getting back on my phone. Instead, you're fully present. And I've noticed that in every single action in my life, I feel actually fully present. I was telling Maya, who's my best friend, it feels like the life I was living pre this cleanse was like living a recap of my life. Like it felt like recaps of an episode in Love Island where they're like, previously on Love Island. That's what my day-to-day felt like. Now I feel like I'm actually living through the episodes. I feel like I'm actually living through my life. I feel like days are longer. I am actually present in my actions. I'm not rushing through things. I'm just present. And that makes me want to do things like my hobbies so much more. And it's just such a beautiful thing. I know it's annoying to hear me talk about it nonstop in the vlogs recently, but I am doing it now, and it'll taper off, I promise, but I'm doing it now because I cannot emphasize enough how transformative it has been for me, and how much more joy I'm getting out of simple things in life, and how much more mindfulness I have, and how much more it feels like I'm actually living my life, and how much I'm able to listen to myself more too. It's a scary thing. It's a hard thing. I went through a very hard week during like the third week of this cleanse where it was so difficult mentally. But as soon as you're past that, it's like, la la la, the cloud's clear and life is good. Just sticking with it is really, really important. The specific apps that I block is anything social. I have 2 settings on my brick. One of them is like anything media related. So even like audiobooks and YouTube and things like that, everything, because that allows me to go engage with things like in an analog way. And I think that's really important. It forces me to have that time with hobbies that are tactile and analog. And then I have a mode where it's everything except YouTube and music and audiobooks. So that's when I like to have I like to watch a couple YouTube videos at lunch, or maybe at the end of the day I watch a couple YouTube videos, and like that's it. Other than that, everything is blocked except for the 1 hour that I get on whenever I'm posting that day to post and comment and connect with you guys. And I really love the connection part, and I love being able to comment and stuff when I'm posting a video. And so that's really important to me. And obviously posting videos is my job, so that's also important. But I allot myself literally an hour. And that's it. I do not scroll. I don't catch up. I do that. And then I'm bricked for the entire rest of the time. So that's kind of like the details of how I'm doing it. It's not a no screens cleanse. It's just a no social medias, and particularly the short form scrolling social media cleanse. I still game. I think gaming requires a lot of attention and actually is very good for regulating emotions and is not based on dopamine spikes. Some. Caveat to say some are definitely made to give you those like quick dopamine hits, and it's very quick, but the ones that I play are not. So I think gaming, reading, even like watching TV shows and movies, like those are hobbies that utilize screens that are not necessarily bad for your attention span and bad in the same way that like scrolling and algorithms are. So that's my specific line there. I think somebody asked a question about like keeping up in my personal life with people, and that's just something like I honestly haven't noticed. I kind of stopped keeping up with personal life stuff in like my personal Instagram when I started doing content creation because it was just too much to try and keep up with both. So I don't even that's not where I even get my updates on people's lives anymore, and certainly not the other way around. People in my personal life do not get their updates from me for social media unless they're following my content. And I think that's just a matter of like, if somebody matters to you and if you really want to connect with that person, you're going to make the effort. You're going to text them and be like, hey, what's up? Anything new? And like, here are my updates. Do you have any? Or like, hey, let's hang out and we can catch up. That's going to be the connection point. And the like passive just consuming your friends' stories and stuff, like I don't know, like do you feel actually connected to friends when you're seeing like what they ate for dinner, or like you're seeing that they went on a trip? Like I don't know. I would wager no. And that like the real connection comes when like you plan to hang out or you have that like moment of catching up over text, you know? And so I don't think that that's necessary. I don't think it's like a loss. I haven't felt that loss at all. If anything, it's made me more communicative with the friends that I know I do want to invest that time in. It kind of helps you realize like which friends are important to you and which friends you do want to spend that time and effort investing like real communication in. So I think there's like a lesson there too. Whether it's Brick, whether it's an app, whatever it is, I highly recommend because that has completely shifted my approach to hobbies and completely shifted my capacity for being consistent with hobbies and like actually enjoying my time with hobbies and not feeling like I'm forcing myself to do that while I'm thinking about something else. And then the last thing I'll say about just attention span and feelings when doing your hobby is something I learned from a TikTok long ago, which again, like good value at the time, but I don't miss it. It was a therapist talking about like when you feel that sense of I don't want to do, like I want to do this hobby that I've found so much joy in before, but like right now I'm picking it up and I'm not feeling like I want to, even though I want to. Like I want to sit here and I want to play my game, but it just sounds boring right now. I don't know. Obviously don't force it if you genuinely don't want to. Like if there's something you feel in your gut, I don't want to do this right now, don't do it, don't force it. But if you know that you want to, picking it up, starting, just like giving yourself 5 to 10 minutes of just starting that hobby, letting the thought and the feelings of like, I'm bored washed over you. Just see it, acknowledge it, let it pass, keep trying to play, keep trying to do that hobby, keep trying to draw, whatever, for those 5 to 10 minutes. And eventually you will get past your brain's just like, because often that's not even what your brain wants. It's just what your brain thinks it wants. Like your brain is just putting up that wall for some other reason. As soon as you kind of lock in for those 5 to 10 minutes, you tend to just lock in and you tend to really just get into it. And if those thoughts come up again in your hobby session, again, acknowledge it, say, hey, thought, and let it pass. If it comes up to a point where you're like, okay, maybe this is like a real feeling and maybe I should pay attention to it, then pay attention to it. Put the hobby down. Maybe you don't want to play. But there is a sense of like your immediate thoughts are not fact and are not the truth just because it's a thought that comes in your head. Look at it, examine the thought, and say, let's wait on that and let's see if I keep actually feeling that. In conclusion, social media cleanse and being present with your feelings and just acknowledging feelings and letting it pass 100% has solved the problem of like attention span in hobby time. I really hope that resonates with somebody. All right, y'all, we covered a lot today, whether it was deconstructing and reconstructing what hobbies are to us, whether we need to have a start and finish to them. We unpacked some of the reasons why we might pick up and drop hobbies on a whim. We even came to the conclusion that maybe that isn't such a bad thing. And maybe our hobbies are serving us in multiple ways, teaching us something about ourselves, teaching us something we don't like, being there for us in specific moods and times in our lives. We covered the hobbies that are mainstays, our core hobbies, and then the ones that are flings, which also teach us a lot about ourselves. And then we covered the issue of attention spans and how that really does affect how we can be present in our hobbies. So I hope all of that has been helpful in examining your hobby practice and maybe looking at some things you want to change, or maybe looking at some ways that you want to approach it with a little more grace and compassion with yourself. I always love a kind of therapy session chit chat vlog with y'all, but I will see you guys next week for a Q&A. I love you. Stay cozy. Bye.